Hello everybody, June here. I am coming back to you for, you guys did, the June projects video. June was a slow month. I said in my May projects video that my sojo was gone, and looking back on June, I still hadn't gotten it back. So I only made, I think, like 4 things, one of which at least was not a success. But let's get started. The first thing that I made in June was a Jordy Bralette by Erin, and I've always said that I'm not interested in sewing bras, and I guess that still holds true, especially now, but I thought that I would give it a try because it was a kit and the pattern seemed easy enough. So I went ahead and ordered the kit from Erin, Erin, and it's here. Obviously I am not going to show you this on me, but I ordered the kit in the nude color, and I made the pattern in a 36 double D. The construction itself was pretty straightforward, and actually for being my first bra in any way, shape or form, I'm very pleased with it from a sewing technique point of view. However, it doesn't fit. The band is fine, but the cuffs actually gape a lot. Let's see here if I can show you over my clothes. Obviously I'm already wearing a bra, but if I put this on here, and I actually don't know if you can even see it, but if I put this on here and stretch it up, you can see that there is a big, excess fabric chunk here, and it just doesn't fit well enough. And I think that is because I chose the wrong size, and it also may be the shape of my breasts. Who knows? I am not in a rush to sew another one, and quite frankly I think that making bras, or just getting bras in general, is such a trial and error thing. You go to the store and you try on 20 bras and maybe you come home with one. I feel like sewing them is just wasted time that I can be making other things. I am perfectly happy buying bras at a shop, and I'm never making underwear. The next thing that I made was a dress because I am loving dresses, and this one is a style that I thought would suit me, and actually it kind of does suit me, but it is the Marigold dress by Blank Slate Patterns. I made a size L, and it's a little big around, this is not it, but it's a little bit big around the collar, but nothing terrible, and I think it looks great. I love that it has an elasticated waist, which is great for weight fluctuations, either up or down, or maybe you just ate too much at dinner. Not that I would know anything about that. So I like that. I decided to leave the sleeves off after I cut them because I liked the way that it looked without the sleeves, because the neckline is pretty high. I thought that I needed to show a little more flesh on the upper part of the dress to make it a little bit more flattering. And I, as always, did a sway back adjustment slash full bust. To be fair, I haven't done a proper full bust adjustment in a long time. So what I do, because I'm already short anyway, and I'm short waisted a little bit, so what I have to do is, rather than add at the center front, is really take off a lot at the center back. So in this one I took off an inch starting at the center back. So from the center back, it's not the same, but from the center back fold I took an inch, tapering out to nothing at the side seams, and that sort of made the waistline of the dress a little bit more level. There's still a little bit of bagginess on the side, but I think that's just the nature of this style of dress, that is gathered by elastic, and there's just nothing that you can really do to avoid that. And aside from the sleeves, the only other thing that I did differently was that instead of using the size elastic they call for the waistband, it's not a waistband, but for the waist seam, I used a 1/2 inch wide elastic. They use 5/8, but I miscalculated my buttonhole at the bottom slightly, and so the seam would have been, so a 1-inch seam would have been just on the buttonhole, and that just wasn't going to work out. So I ended up having to do a slightly smaller casing so that I could put my elastic in and not mess up my buttonhole. Sometimes you just gotta MacGyver stuff. The next thing that I made was another dress with an elasticated waistband. This is from a new pattern magazine. They have 5 issues now, and this one is from issue 4. The magazine is called Fibre Mood, and it is kind of like La Maison Victor in the style of the magazine, in the style of the clothing. So I made a dress that they called a tailor, and I made it in a size medium because it is very generous in the sizing, and I did mostly what they call for in the pattern, except that for the elastic, what they have you do as per the instructions in the magazine is sew the elastic directly onto the waist seam after you sew the skirt and the bodice together. But I think that just does not look neat. You still have exposed elastic inside, so what I did was something similar to the marigold dress. I added a whole inch seam allowance for the waistline, both to the bodice and to the skirt, and then I used the excess seam allowance to create the casing for the elastic. And now I do have a row of stitching to make the casing, but I'm perfectly okay with that. Now the thing about this dress is that the torso I think is a little long, even though I shortened it a bit. Did I shorten it? Actually, I don't think I did. No, I didn't. But the torso is a little bit long, even with the accounting for the blousing of the elastic. And it is not me. It is designed to be this way because the model on the magazine has that. You can see that the back waist is lower than the front waist, and they have a lot of blousing at the center back. So there's that. Then second, I thought that my neckline would open a little bit more because on the model it does look slightly more V-shaped. Mine stays pretty closed. I'm not sure how I feel about that kind of neckline on me, but I think the reason that it doesn't drape as much, even though my fabric is very drapey, is because my fabric is also very tightly woven. I know, it's weird. It is a weird fabric. So I don't know how I feel about that neckline. And then the fabric is a flamenca fabric that I bought in Seville, and it is meant to be used for flamenca outfits for the Feria de Abril and for like flamenco dancing, and it is 100% polyester. You put that dress on and you can hear the static electricity just coming off you. So I'm glad that I made the dress, but I don't know how practical it is. It is definitely too hot to wear in summer during the day, so it's gonna be like a special occasion type dress. That said, I'm glad that I made it because what I was really trying to do was get a feel for the magazine and the patterns, and I think I did get a good feel for that, although I probably would have to make something else for adults to really be able to you know, like get a good feel for what these patterns are like and what sort of adjustments I would have to do. But I like how the dress looks aside from the neckline, and I'm actually going on vacation pretty soon, and I'm gonna take that for like dinner, you know, dinner wear, because it's all I see and don't have to wear it outside. The last sewing thing that I made was a t-shirt. It is Simplicity 8376, and it is one of those pattern hacking patterns, and I wanted to test the crew neck t-shirt, which is the basic pattern on that envelope, because there's other variations in the envelope that I wanted to make. I went with a size large because I wanted some positive ease, and let me say that even with the size L, the size L is size for a body smaller than mine, and it is still big on me, which is a problem that people have with big 4 patterns all the time. There is a ton of ease, and now I like my t-shirts with positive ease, but there's just a little bit too much in this one, and it works fine because my fabric is a very thin drapey rayon with spandex, so it works fine. If you were using a thicker fabric, this is just too much and it will be like a little bit of a tent. So I wanted to test that pattern. It's okay. My only complaint with it is that the neck binding is too long. So the pattern piece they give you is too long, and it doesn't allow for the band to sit flat once you bite at it. Now, I've said this before, a lot of this is a function of the stretch of the fabric. So the more your fabric stretches, the smaller, or the smaller circumference, which is really length, because it's a straight piece of fabric, your binding has to be. So the more stretch, the smaller the band, the less stretch, the bigger the band. Because if you stretch the band too much, then what you have is ripples on the body of the shirt. So, long story short, it runs pretty big. You may have to make the band smaller. Now, particular to my fabric, the sewing with it was fine, but when it came time to hem it, it was a pain in the butt. My cover stitch machine was not having this. It was just not happy with it. So because the fabric doesn't fray, what I did was I trimmed it as neatly as I possibly could, and I left it unhemmed, both on the body and on the sleeves. And it's an ambulance. No, it's a fire truck. Right, so I left it unhemmed, the body and the sleeves, and this is really just cake, right? This is a very basic sort of everyday wear kind of pattern, not stuff you wear to work even. I wear it to be in the house, I wear it to like run errands, for that it's fine. I have my own tried and true crew neck t-shirt, and it's from the Sew You Homestretch book. That's the one that I use for my my B flutter sleeve t-shirt, and I've used it many times. So I think I'm gonna stick to that. But this t-shirt is okay. It just runs pretty big. And then I finished two knitted sweaters. Very different sweaters. The first one is a Draper cardigan by Amy Herzog, and it's in the Fit to Flatter book. I started this sweater back in February 9th to be exact, and I used Quince & Co. Chickadee fabric in the color Petal, I think it was. Yes, Petal. And I forced myself to finish this cardigan, and it was a combination of things. First of all, the pattern, I did not like how it was written. For example, they have you do all the math, and I'm not here for that. And it wasn't very clear. I mean, you had to do math, so I always expected to have to do some math in knitting, but this pattern just had you do math at just odd places, and then they would ask you, or tell you to, they would give instructions for one side, say the left side of the sweater, and then for the right side it would say knit as for the left, reversing all patterns and increases or decreases, or all shaping in patterns. And that was hard. I had to ask a lot of questions, and then things just don't add up. and I had to sort of just fudge it sometimes. And here's the thing, if you don't actually knit, you might not know this, but the way that you increase and decrease stitches to make things smaller or bigger, it actually has an effect on how the garment looks, or rather how that stitch looks. So there are left leaning decreases, right leaning decreases, there are decreases and increases that are more visible than others, and good patterns will tell you how to do them, like knit two together or slip slip knit. And this may not make sense to you, but it is the way that good patterns are written. This one, there was none of that. It didn't say, I think at the very beginning of the pattern it said, unless otherwise pointed out, or unless otherwise specified, this is how you do this particular decrease. But the particular decrease that we're talking about was not the kinds of decreases that were in the sweater. So I just really struggled with the sweater, and I just lost interest in it. And then I wasn't sure that the color was good because it looked pretty plain. But then I finished it, I blocked it, and I realized that when I did my gauge swatch for the size, I didn't block my swatch. So the sweater is bigger than it was intended to be. The sleeves are not snug, they're actually pretty big, and it was just like at every turn. Oh, and then to add insult to injury, when I was seaming it together, because I knit it in pieces, I somehow seamed the back to itself, so it was a tube, and then I had to undo that. So anyhow, long story long, I'm glad that it's done. I probably will never make another Amy Herzog pattern, and I don't know how much weight I'm going to get out of this. It is very vanilla, right? It's very much cake. This is the kind of stuff you wear to the office. It's not terribly exciting, but it is finished. And then the most beautiful sweater ever. I made the Diamond Delight sweater by Drops. The pattern is by Drops, and it's a fruit pattern, first of all, and second, I made it with such beautiful yarn. The yoke, which is, by the way, my first yoke, is it? I've had a baby sweater that was a yoke sweater, a circular yoke sweater, but this is my first adult yoke sweater, and my second Fair Isle style, so stranded colorwork project. For the first one was a hat like 4 years ago. But anyhow, I made the colorwork in the yoke using a yarn called Merino Erin by Hedgehog Fibers. The color is called Cherry Blossoms, and it was dyed specially for Argyle Yarn Shop here in Brooklyn for their for the Brooklyn yarn crawl that happened in April. And then the brown part of the sweater is the same yarn but in the color Damnation, like damned nation. It was perfect. Initially I wanted blue, but when I went to the yarn shop, they didn't have enough blue for the body. They only had enough brown. So I went with that, and it was the best thing that could have happened to the sweater. It looks so nice. My husband says it looks like a chocolate cupcake with icing and sprinkles. I think I agree, but it is so beautiful, and it was such a quick knit. I started this on May 26th, and I finished it, blocked, ends woven in and everything on June 15th, and I am so in love with this sweater. Now of course I can't wear it, I mean it's the middle of summer, but I am very much looking forward to fall. But this one wasn't without the struggles either. When I started knitting it, I first chose a size L, and I knit to about here, so enough to be able to get my arms through the armholes, and it was so big. So I ripped back everything, so completely pulled it out and started in a size medium, and I'm very glad that I did because it fits very well. And so this one is in the medium, and I just think it is so freaking gorgeous. I don't know if you can see very well here, but These designs here, I think they look like fleur-de-lis. I don't know if it's meant to be that way, but I think they do. And if you have ever wondered what the inside of stranded colorwork looks like, let me show you. So this is the outside, and here is the inside. Let me pull the sleeves out. This is why it is called stranded colorwork. You see all those things there? They're called floats. And that's just how you carry yarn over from one stitch to the next, because you don't knit with the same yarn every stitch, right? So you alternate in the places that you want different colors. But I think that I actually did a pretty decent job with the catching the floats and just balancing the tension. I think it's pretty great. So that is all I have for you today. That was 4 sewing things, 2 knitting things, and I've recovered my sojo, which you will get to see on the next projects video. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!